Okay, so on this installment of reading the Parinama Method cover to cover, we are going to talk about conscious awareness in a very particular way. So once again, these are like cold readings, or I haven't read ahead. But this section is Embloom, the witness, and the first reference to Embloom is on page 41 in chapter 3. So this is once again a reminder, or like a pointing to that we're starting to like fold into the infinite loop where we have the end of the book reconnecting with the beginning of the book. And I was, before, so the one thing I was searching it out, I was trying to find the page it was on, and in doing that, I had gone through the chapters, the pages, in part 1, because I was like, I thought there was a section for it, but it's just the opening for chapter 3. And um and if you're so one of the things I want to encourage as kind of a pointing to with this is that in chapter 1, the Dabrowski's theory of positive disintegration, I really recommend looking at that. The entry into this process in chapter 1, um, I don't know, I feel like almost like just saying, like, it's kind of just worth rereading periodically if you're in the book, um, if you're in the book that it, especially if you're all the way to page 250 like we are. It's kind of good to, call back some of the positioning, because the chapter 1 is really the part 1 is like the introduction to the ethos of Parinama, and chapter 1 is like the on-ramp. And for many people, chapter 1 is kind of like enough, like, it's potent enough that it hits really hard, and then they kind of, step back, and they step back, and the thing is, the book now, we're kind of getting close to it being out for about a year. One of the things about this is like a long haul thing. So, time is really important when it comes to this, in respect to, like, that the process of unfolding can take time, especially as we're increasing the capacity of our nervous system off of what our sort of the sort of established baseline is. So the time to actually like expose ourselves to like intensity and high voltage, um and then have the kind of the recoil and the integration, it just takes time. And something that's important to mention about TPM is that if you were to have like if this rushed in too fast, it's devastating. Like, so the little by little unfolding is exactly how you want it. Little by little integrating, exactly how you want it. And it's even in the little by little, it can get pretty disruptive. So it's just this going back to the importance of this like relationship of like caring for yourself in this like very precious and patient and protective way. So as things get too intense, and it's very meta, because it's like if things become too intense, it's being able to say enough. It's not this thing about like friggin' bite down and just keep fighting. It's realizing that it's like we're not trying to get to dissociation. We're trying to increase the intensity to where we can remain present, um, and maybe sometimes get a little, it's like a little past that and then like into like sort of build the strength around that. For those of you this would make sense for. Either way. Okay, so I'm going to start reading. And again, I'm really happy to be doing this today. Yeah. Oh, wife. I'm happy to be here with you if you're watching this. So, oh my God. He makes little noises. He makes these noises when he's like eating, like when he's like cleaning himself. It's like, I love him. Okay, so here we go. So Embloom, the witness. I'm actually not going to preface it because I don't remember what's in here. So we'll find it together. So, all right. So the Embloom, see chapter 1, 3, and 4. Okay. I didn't find it in 1, but I scanned. But apparently it is in there. This was proofread and edited by people who are very good at what they do. Yeah, I was thinking it was in 4 too, and but I think one of the things with okay, I'm not gonna get into it. That's too blah blah blah. Okay, so the Embloom, see chapter 1, 3, and 4, is a constant observing presence within you. Watching with non-intervening equanimity and able to perceive thoughts, which provides us with evidence that thoughts are not who we are. If we can be aware of them, what is the awareness that is observing them? And although this presence does not directly intervene, it exists as an integrity so central to our being that it makes denial of it increasingly uncomfortable over time. Whew. Wow. Still, the Embloom does not acquiesce, and life can become quite painful when we deny its expression as we live through our adaptations, biases, and beliefs instead of through our core inner truth. A lot of our pain, oh my gosh, wow. If you can feel that, my gosh, please put like a heart emoji in the comments. Join me with that for that. Okay. A lot of our pain is a form of course correction, driving our lives to integrity. Yep, this is like we're going pointing right back to page 1 of this book. So a lot of our pain is a form of course correction, driving our lives to integrity. Our adaptations and holding patterns in their attempts to keep us physically safe have protected us. But eventually they become maladaptive and we become protective from the Embloom's expression. Our adaptations are not malevolent. Their genesis was in the service of our safety and survival. They're a deep and profound expression of self-love and self-protection, but they don't know how or when to let go. So only you can assist them to do it. You have 2 loving forces within you that have different beliefs about what it means to be alive. One keeps you safe, and the other is for your ultimate fulfillment. And in a quintessential paradox, both are correct. The inquiry and the work of consciousness involve appreciating and loving these aspects of ourselves. We release or relax our adaptations and holding patterns with love and appreciation when they no longer serve us, being patient in the process so that they too may be free. They've done important work and will always be a part of us, but their service can wind down now. The Embloom is eternal And the seventh hub is where we attempt to comprehend the scope and magnitude of our existence. We are dynamic and multidimensional in ways that are nuanced and paradoxical, contained within a larger pattern just beyond the edge of our intellectual grasp. This cannot be understood rationally. It can only be felt and experienced. This cannot be understood rationally. It can only be felt and experienced. As soon as we start trying to put the expansive, astonishing nature of this experience through the filters of observation and verbalization, the essence we touched begins to disintegrate and becomes another object viewed through the influence of our relative beliefs. This hub is where we do our most advanced logical thinking, but it's also the frontier where we sense what is just beyond the horizon of our logical comprehension and practice advanced forms of surrender to access it. Whew. The embloom is the enlivening, eternal aspect of yourself that observes and can be experienced as a sense within you that looks outward with complete equanimity. We're a phenomenon of consciousness becoming aware of itself. In contemplation or meditation, two questions you can ask are: how can I be aware of my thoughts if they are who I am? And what is this aspect of myself that can see my thoughts? Any arising responses are more senses of revelation than answers. When we meditate, we can practice exploring three predominant layers, as I discussed before. The first layer is usually the sensations of pain and discomfort in the body, sometimes referred to as the gross body with an E in terms of physical. A term referring to the most immediately accessible aspect of our physical experience. This is a difficult layer to penetrate because it's the loudest and most distracting. If you're not used to an observation practice, you may reflexively try to resolve the pain and discomfort. This often leads to directing focus entirely to the sensations or to addressing the sensation by stopping the observation to fix the discomfort and therefore ending the practice. It's normal. If our early hubs were interrupted by neglect and inattention from caregivers, ignoring our pain can be highly distressing. Therefore, the order of operations for actualization is from the bottom up. Bypassing our interruptions and holding patterns is possible for short periods, but cannot be sustained. When we sit with our bodies, we notice things that need to be addressed right now, which is an experience we all have when initially exploring stillness. But notice how a hangnail or unshaved leg or any other distraction requiring so-called urgent attention is no longer urgent as soon as the practice stops. Leave the practice and the agitation is resolved, so the random fixation is forgotten. I said this thing in yoga I'd be really distracted if, like, one of my toenails was sort of, like, slightly like anything on like, I'd be like, "Oh my gosh." It would be like I'd be fixated the entire like, it would just keep pulling me back in. And then as soon as the practice would be over, I'd forget about it. And then the next day in my practice, I'd look and I'd be like, "Oh, we have the same issue. Didn't get fixed." It was apparently so important, it took me completely out of it, but not important enough that once I left that I fixed it. The second layer is the more subtle functioning of the body, the awareness of your breath, the feeling of your heartbeat or digestion, or maybe the sense of your circulatory system or the sensation of the air on your skin. In these first two layers, we can learn to accept that we are experiencing, actually, in these first two layers, we can learn to accept what we are experiencing without intervening. And in the third layer, there's a more sublime, more exquisite twinkling of the entire body. The simple, subtle energy body that presents a paradox to the hardline boundary of the boundary of the physical body. How this layer is experienced is individual, but the unifying fundamental is that it's a state in which we can sense the outer reaches of our consciousness and can experience universality within our bodies. Yeah. Yeah, and the more and more, and I'll speak from my direct experience with this practice, is that the more and more this is practiced, the more the adaptations begin to fade away, the chronic aspects of the shadow fade away. This becomes and even things it yeah, that's one way one part of it, but the more and more this is practiced, the more accessible that becomes and the more sustained. You know, and something I wanna bring up about that state was that, first of all, stillness, it's really supported by slowness and stillness, especially in cultivating it and finding it and first starting to, like, tap into it and even just have glimpses of it. Um, it's really like what like if to point to, like, what does this actually feel like? Um, it's a feeling that is a sort of like gross or subtle feeling is would be the closest thing to like something that would be attributed to circulation, increased circulation. So like after a like exercise or even after like orgasm, that sense in the body of just this kind of release that's transient. You know, it's kind of usually like, okay, that's this thing, but that feeling of just this kind of luminescence, and it's always there. It's just, like, being able to become sort of, like, tuned in enough, probably quiet enough, probably still enough. But, like, one of the things I wanna mention about this is that there's a lot of, like, kind of this notion of, like, doing things that are, like, elevated and doing things that are, like, bad and stuff, and, one of the things is that, like, so one time once I heard, it was Eckhart Tolle talk about, like, below consciousness, which is, like, it's a thing, if you're actually, for so in some cases, if you're just kind of doing, like, watching TV and, like, zoning out where you're just, like, the time it's just a feeling. It's like it's oblivion. It's oblivion. It's like it's escape, dissociation, escape. But you can also watch TV from a state of consciousness, which is actually you're zoning out, and you can actually stay aware of the zoning out. Because this idea that's like, okay, there's just this elevated lifestyle where everything is, there's a lot of space in life. There's a lot of time in life. And the idea that you're always gonna be reading, like, Homer's Odyssey or translating it or, like, doing some really elevated thing, it's like, it's just not it, and so the idea that it's like consciousness could only be maintained if you're, like, meditating or if you're doing something like blah, 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 blah. It's like this witnessing, it's always happening. It's a constant, it's just really like the experientialness of it, of accessing it, which is like the thing. So in order to it like so anyway, yeah. I guess I just point that out because it's like when people are like, "Oh, I like watched I wasted a lot of time today," or whatever. It's like, yeah, like, and even things where people, I hear people say like, "Well, you're alive, so get out and grab life by the, whatever." It's like, just do like, follow the feeling of what it is that, like, you really feel that you like, kind of gives you some and, like, what you need, without value judgments about, like, whether it's, like, a good use of time, just to be able to, like, experience it. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you. And if you wanna read more, if you're following along in the book, the chapter, 3, the opening of chapter 3, page 41, read chapter 1, good stuff, and then also you've got chapter 4, first hub, which apparently has stuff about it as well, so there you have it. Alright, I love you, and I am yeah, I love you, and yeah, there's words, I don't know what they are, though. There's, like, I can't really come up with it, but it's really about, like, supporting, like, just having this, like, hope for your life and your process in this, and per usual, if you have any questions and you don't have my direct contact information, you can direct message me at the Parinama Method on Instagram. Appreciate all comments. I answer any of them. And all interaction, including watching. And if watching involves just you don't feel like interacting, that's also perfectly good. All right, sending you lots of love. I'll see you next time. Bye.